what we're going to cover today, I basically have underlined. We've covered all the code that's required for this next lab, which is 0401, except for the two things here: changing your own password, and all edits must be tracked. Essentially, this is an audit trail. So anything that happens in your system, we're going to create an audit trail, like who did what, right? If you are, in our case, on Retro Amazon, maybe the user edits the title of a book. Well, who made this change, right? We're going to record the username and the action that they took. The action that they took would be a change of a book title. In other words, that would be an update operation, an update on a book, for example, and then who performed that action, right? So audit trails are something that we're gonna, kind of build into our ticket tracker system, because that's pretty cool that you can do that. Ultimately, this can be done because we're storing user information inside of a cookie, inside of a web token, and we've got this middleware that can basically tell you who's logged in. And so if we kind of look at the current state of our program, of our Retro Amazon backend, let's go ahead and boot this up. npm run start dev. And as of right now, we're running on 3003. Where we left this off yesterday, which hopefully you guys are all caught up and ready to go for today, is if I go to list the books, I get back an error: you are not logged in. And I should probably handle this in a cleaner fashion, and so I don't really crash the system. Notice right now I'm getting this back. I'm getting this res status 500. Notice this is a 500 internal server error, but I'm not catching this. And so if I kind of go back to server.js, yeah, I'm just sending that back. So I'm not a fan of how this is handling this, but it is working, and it is basically saying you're not logged in. However, if I log in, let's see. I think this actually might be down at the moment. Okay, no, it doesn't. It doesn't crash the application. Okay, that's the main thing. So now I'm logging in my user, and now that my user is logged in, what I've done is I've created a cookie. That cookie is sent back and forth every time between the client and the server, and inside of that cookie is a token, an authentication token, that says, hey, I'm logged in, right? So once I log in, now I can get access to the data on the list all books. So if I go to my books route, I have this middleware function called isLoggedIn, and that isLoggedIn is coming from the express auth that we covered yesterday. So we might also remember there is this rec.auth, and so if I just kind of stringify that, to remind everyone of what's inside of this property. Remember, this property was created by the middleware and installed as a global middleware, so that this rec.auth is available to all of our routes. And so if I kind of list out my books again, I get this rec.auth property is, and I could see the user ID, the user email, and the role that they have. Okay, remember, this was the payload of our token that was stored in our cookie. And so this rec.auth contains some information about the user, and we'll be using rec.auth to kind of perform these tasks. So it's an important thing to get that middleware working, right? To get that middleware working, that's going to allow us to change their own password, for example. So let's go ahead and do that. The way that we're going to change our own password, this is updating a user. Now, if I kind of go here, and I look at my different routes for my user, I don't have a lot going on right now. Do I need a screen share? I need a screen share, don't I? No, I don't. Let's share my screen. Okay, good. I need to make some update routes. So I want to make an update. How about we can update the user by the ID, which that makes sense. So for example, we could set it so that an admin can update a user by the ID. You know, for example, if I just have a standard customer, I probably don't want that customer updating someone else. You with me? I only want administrators. That's going to, I'll foreshadow this a little bit into what's around the corner, you know, authorization. We'll cover how we can lock this down so that only an admin can update an ID. But then also, let's do another update where a user can update themselves, right? So if Jack is logged in, Jack can change his own password. Of course, he can't change anyone else's password. Okay? So realizing there's a difference between these two routes that we're going to create. Route number one is kind of an administrator route where you can change anybody's password as long as you have their ID. And route number two is you can change your own, but you can't change anybody else's. And so let's just do the first one. We'll just do admin updating user by ID. Router dot, what do we do? Put / update by ID. I like that. We do have a middleware to validate our ID. We wrote a function called valid ID. We need to go ahead and make an update user schema. We don't have a update user schema, but this looks like a good starting point. And I'll say admin route updating a user. And I got a syntax error because I'm missing a parenthesis semicolon. Okay, it doesn't, we don't have an update user schema, so if I do something like const update user schema, joy.object, okay. We have to fill out our update user schema. Which, can a user update their email address? Typically not. Typically not. So maybe we let a user update their name or password, name or password. So let's kind of take our full name and let the user update their full name, except for it's not required, right? Full name becomes optional. And let's also accept their password. And password is also optional. So an admin can update another user's full name or password. And there's our route. And that's what we have so far. We've got lines 40 through 43. and we've got lines 94 through 96. The next thing to do is kind of just test this new route by go ahead and this is a put. This is a put, and I'm going to call this admin. I guess I got to put the URL http:// host 3003 API. This would be users, API users / I think we put it under update :ID. And I'll just put 1, 2, 3, 4 because really all I'm looking for is I need a valid object ID. So if I go to list all users and I'll target Evan Gudmestead and I put in a valid object ID, I need to send back a res JSON. I am hitting my route, but my route's not sending anything back. Res status 200. Okay, doesn't really matter. Now rec.id should be a thing. Let's go back here. Again, I'll be refactoring this. But now I'm hitting my route and it's sending back a success message, even though we're not doing anything yet. Okay. Well, we have an ID. Do we have a get user by ID in our database? So let's kind of go. Got a get book by ID. Let's look inside of login user. We're logging in a user by their email. Okay, we don't really have a function to get a user by the ID. So let's go ahead and async function get user by ID, send the ID in, and connect to the database, do a find one. Close. This is close, but no cigar. We don't need to convert it to a new object ID. We could just do ID:ID. So this is doing a find one, which is different than a find. If we look here, the find returns a cursor, and then you call toArray to kind of determine how to return that data in the cursor. But find one just returns a single record, and then that return user let's go ahead and export our function get user by ID, comma, get user by ID. Are you okay? Yeah. Yeah. Keeping up? Right now. Let's bring in get user by ID into my user.js. Over here, comma, get user by ID. And now let's go ahead and say const user equals await get user by ID rec.id. And I'll do a debug user and stringify my user just to see that the user is coming back. Okay, so now in its current state, I send across Evan Gudmestead. It says updated, and I've got my user, including their hashed password, in inside of my user object. Now, we should have an updated password or updated name inside of rec.body now. And so if I were to say const update updated user equals rec.body. So updated user is an object. It's either going to have a full name or a password or both. We need to take this user and update whatever data is sent into updated user. So we've got either one property or two properties. So we need to update user with updated user. And you could do that with if statements. I imagine there may be some sort of loop. But basically we've got a full name. If there's a full name and if there's a password, we're going to use bcrypt to set the updated user's password with 10. So this is exactly correct. Now something else, there's a chance that this user ID does not send back a valid user, right? So you could put this if user, if there's a user returned from the database, then we'd perform an update. If user is truthy, meaning this function returned a good user, but if it returned null out of the database, then we don't do any sort of updates. So then now we've got we have updated our user and we need to save them back into the database. So let's see, what function do we have to save a user in? So get all users, log on, add user. We don't have an update user, right? So let's go ahead and write an update user function. Async function update user. We'll send in a user object. Probably need a user should have an ID. So we can do an update one based on the user's ID. And that user's ID should be a Mongo ID. Okay, so what I'll change about this here, I don't think we need to call new object ID here, because I think user ID, I think it's already. So we'll send in a user object. Let's walk through this code. We connect to our database. We run an update one. The first argument is what user we're updating. We're finding the user by their ID. And again, we kind of demonstrated this working already, right? We're finding a user by the ID. And then we're setting and spreading the user's properties. So we're spreading our user object and making those changes and returning a result. Now this result is a database result, right? This is an object that's coming back from a database, and it has properties like was there a match and was there an updated user, right? So this result is an object that's coming back from the database. So we need to parse that object a little bit and determine how we're going to use it to determine, whether this was successful or not. So this function needs to be exported, comma, export user, or update user. So there's our update user and brought in up at the top. Update user. And scroll back to our function, updating by the ID. Const db result equals await update user. And you could do some sort of if statement. If db result dot modified count is 1, then we send back user updated. Otherwise, I'm just going to send back let's kind of put my curly there. And I need to close my if statement right there. I'm going to put this in an else block. So if there is a user, otherwise, we're going to send back an else. So this if else right here, otherwise user not updated. Send back some sort of status 400. Let's test it. So now, here, let's save this. Save. I'm going to call this update admin update user. Admin route to update the user. And this is going on retro Amazon users. And what I can do, again, if I list all my users, there's my name. And that's my password. So let's start by just updating my full name. Admin route, go to the body tab, the form encoded, basically that would be coming from a form. Full name, I'll throw my middle name in there. For one gold star, middle name, Andreas. I was going to ask you to guess my middle name. Middle name's Andreas. Evan Andreas Gudmestead is my full name. If I ping that, it does say user updated. And if I go back to list all users, it did update my middle name. If I go back here and I uncheck full name, put in the word password, I'm going to change the password to password 1. It says user updated. If I try and log in with my old password, now my password's incorrect. If I log back in with password 1, I am logged in. Yes?
Can we go back to the async function of the user?
Sure can. So I've demonstrated changing my full name or changing my password. And of course, you could also change both. Let's throw Evan Andreas, how about Evan A. Gudmestead? And I'll change my password to password 2. Let's update the user here. Just demonstrated going to list all users. Evan A. Gudmestead, and if I go to login user with password 1, I get incorrect password 2. We are welcomed. So I just want to keep all my passwords to password. So there we go. And now if I go to log in my user with password, I'm logged in. And what would you like to see? The update user? Okay, there's also a case that your database results, Nathan just kind of showed me a scenario where, hey, DB result modified count wasn't 1, and therefore we weren't sending anything back. So you could just add a little, not updated here. A little else block to this if statement to kind of clean that up a little bit in the event that nothing was updated. Should that scenario hit. Okay, so that we still, we're getting some different debugs. Can take those out. Debug user. Not sure where that debugs. Admin updating a user. I must have taken that out maybe, I don't know. I'm not seeing this debug user. Must have took it out. Okay, let's make another route. So this was the admin route where a user can update by the ID. This self-service route, again, this is any user can update their own router.put. Let's just keep the /update/me. So this is the route to update yourself. Now, since we're not passing in an ID, we do have an ID in rec.auth. So I'm going to simply debug user. And I'm going to say rec.auth. And I'm just going to stringify my rec.auth. Again, you have to be logged in first. So let's go ahead and say is logged in, comma, is logged. I need to bring that method in if I'm not already. I don't think I have that brought in. So go up to the top, import is logged in from Merlin for Express Auth. So obviously you got to be logged in to update your own password.
And what's it do exactly?
Line 11 allows this method will lock down the route so that we cannot hit the route unless the user is logged in. Remember how we locked down the books?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. You can't update your password. You can't update yourself unless you're logged in. So we're going to make sure you're logged in. Okay, and I'm just going to send back a success message to test this early on. And let's save this, Is it it's a put. It's a put. So our method is put. HTTP API /users/update/me. Now if I got a cookie here, I do, I'm gonna get rid of that, right? So no cookie. I'm gonna try and hit the route. And ID is not a valid ID. Okay, what's going on here? It's passing me into this ID. Remember, your static routes have to go above your dynamic routes. So you have to put the self-service update route above the dynamic variable ID. So now we're getting the error, you are not logged in. Locked down by our middleware. Which I do want to fix this because I don't want this to happen. I just got to think about how to do that. Tinker and I'll figure that out. So that's good. Let's go ahead and log in. If I log in myself, okay, welcome. Now I've got a cookie. That cookie is sent back and forth between the client and server. And now if I go to update me, I am logged in and I just get a success message updated, but I also debugged self-service route, updating a user. And so I debugged my rec.auth, and you could see inside of my rec.auth object, I've got an ID, _ID. Right? So instead of getting the ID in the route, I can get my ID inside of rec.auth. So I should be able to run very similar code to the last one. Oh, by the way, let's go back in to ID. Put this in a try catch. There's the import right there. Yeah, that's a good point. I do want to, it's just interesting to me that the import syntax is different. If you write your own middleware, you provide the .js on the file name. If you bring in a middleware that you brought in from NPM, you don't, right? It's just like here, we're not saying debug.js or express.js, you know? So it's just I don't know, that's quirky to me. But also here, anytime we're destructuring, we're putting that on. So maybe that's it. Maybe it's anytime we're destructuring. And anyways, yeah, Nathan. Okay, that's something from yesterday. So we'll come back to that. Okay, just hold off on that for now. But we have a rec.auth, right? Rec.auth has an ID. So let's const updated user is coming in the body. That is correct. We're going to get our user by the ID. What I got to go back and fix the other one is I got to put all this in a try catch. Okay, so this needs to go inside of my try block. Okay, so we get an updated user from the body. We hit our database, get a user by the ID. If the user is truthy, then we need to update the user based on their full name. If updated user has a full name, very similar to what we just did. If updated user has a password, update the user. I know this is a whole lot of code. I'm just kind of auto-filling here, but it's picking up on what I just did. So let me show the full screen. And I'll even throw in the catch block and we should be done. That's no longer catch res status 500 error.stack. Okay, I don't normally like to write this much code without testing it, but the reason that I can do so confidently is we just literally did the same thing. The main thing was getting the ID out of rec.auth, which rec.auth was an object created by our middleware that we installed yesterday. So here again, we're doing this update me, and I am logged in with an auth token for, I'm logged in as myself. And so let's just start by body, form encoded, full name. Let's go back to my full name. Okay, so I did screw it up somewhere. So go back to list all users. Okay. This. So as of right here, I'm thinking get user by ID. In this case, auth ID I'm betting is a string and not an object ID. So we do have a function new ID. I'm going to wrap this in new ID. That'll convert that to an object ID. And I'm going to try this again. And now I get the users updated. So if I go back to list all users, username changed. If I go here and I say password to password1, user updated. If I go to login, password no longer working, password1 is working. So same logic as before. I just had to add this new ID because this was a string. And so new ID was that function that we wrote. We wrote that yesterday. All that does is it takes in a string and it outputs that string in an object ID. So on a closer look, this looks like a crash because you're getting all these error messages, but it was never crashing. It's just a debug. And so if I go into my server.js and I get rid of this debug server right here, okay, so that's a little cleaner, and it's kind of the same thing here. Okay, so that'll clean that out. So if I try and hit this route, okay, now I'm sending back my res.json error.stack. I'm not sure that I want to send back the whole stack. Maybe I just want the error dot. I don't know if there's an error property or something. Maybe error dot error. Let's see. Nope, made that one up. So here's what I'll do. I'll just stringify this error object and look at its properties. Okay, we got a status. Wait a minute. That's not getting me the info I need. We see that it's a 401, which is the status code. I wonder if there's a dot status. It's weird to me, this backslash. Anyways, let me get this open. So the stack has what I just wanted to say this, but I don't want anything else. And I also want the 501. I'd prefer that it be the 501. Wonderful. So let's send out error message. How about that? Okay, so we got the message. It is a 500. So this 500 ERR dot status. So now we got the 401 unauthorized, and you are not logged in.
Should we do that for all of them that exist?
This is kind of a catch-all, right? This is on server.js. You're welcome to make whatever changes. This is the experimental zone. Feel free to experiment. Okay, so now I've got my error messages cleaned up a little bit. I like that. And we have an update admin route, and we have an update self-service route, which, kind of going back to our lab, checks off number 3, changing their own password. I guess we did a little bit more than that, because this would be the me route, but updating someone else's password, that doesn't hurt anything.
Can I see the me route?
Sure. All right, the next thing down here, all edits must be tracked with a date and time a change was made, the user who made the change, and what was changed. And so, for example, to list our books, we have to now be logged in. Is logged in. Let's kind of go here, getting a book by the ID. Let's just go ahead, say sure. Now, is logged in, comma. So let's just lock down all of our routes, because that's basically what the lab says. To get a book by ID is logged in. To add a new book is logged in. Whether this is practical or not for everyone's is logged in. To delete a book, we have to be logged in. To add a new book, to update a book by its ID, we're locking it all down. Yep.
Is there a difference from doing what you just did versus the if rec dot off is invalid? Because then we also do that and it did the same result and get all books.
So this middleware, it's just an order of operations thing. And so the way that this kind of works, a route is requested, and it kind of starts here, finds the route, right, attaches the away, and then finds the route, and then runs valid body, and then runs is logged in. So this is logged in runs before valid body, which runs before this. So it's just an order of operations. frankly, it's just easier to write this function call versus rewriting that logic over and over. So I would leverage this.
Okay.
Let's kind of back up here. Sure, to list my users, we're going to make them is logged in. To add a new user, we're not logging in for that. To log in, you don't have to log in for that. To update yourself, you have to be logged in. And let's just say, oh, sure, if you're an admin, you're logged in. Okay. So we're just adding that middleware function to all of our routes except for the two. And let's hit our database. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to make a separate collection for an audit trail. We're making an audit trail. And so right now we have two collections. Our collections are users and books, right? These people don't think I have class. Let's connect. And so in my retro Amazon, here's our two collections, book and user. Let's make a collection called edit. Or edits. I mean, since it's singular, I guess it's a singular edit collection. And then we're just going to put all the changes inside of our edit collection. So let's make a new function inside of database to save and edit. We'll take an edit object and we'll save it to an edit collection. Okay, so this collection doesn't exist, but suffice to say, as soon as we do our first insert, we're going to put that document into a new collection and return the result. So as we've done 100 times, let's export save edit, comma, save edit. And let's bring it into user. So import save edit. And so sure, let's see what we need. All edits must be tracked with a date and time, the user, and what was changed. And so that's the data that will go into an edit object, if you will. And one second. Okay, so this is on, which one do we want to do first, right? So this is our updating user. So we have two ways to update our user. Let's just do the me route. And so kind of down here, once we have a modified count, okay, we'll go ahead and make const edit equals timestamp. Property is a new date because it wanted a date. We'll send an operation, and this will be edit user And we'll even say self-edit, maybe self-edit. Update user. The collection is the user collection. The user that we're updating, right? You could call this the target user, or just the, or you could just call it the target. Well, we're updating rec.auth ID, which becomes user dot underscore ID. Basically, they're both the same data. And under who, like, what's the authorization that you have? Like, who you logged in as to do this, right? So rec.auth holds their credentials to do the operation. Right now, it's the self route, right? So this is our edit object that kind of contains the data we're looking for. And now we just need to call our save edit. And if you want to store the database results, const db edit results equals, you know, you could do something with that, or, you know, in this case, you just save the edit and send back the user updated. So again, this is the self-service update. We make an object, save the object. Like, literally, that's all that we did. And this code's kind of repeatable, so maybe you put this in a function of some sort, but it's pretty basic. Let's test it. So this is updating self. So let's see. I'm going to save this because I don't have this saved yet. I'm going to click on save. I'm going to call this self-service update route. Self-service update. Let's see, I am not logged in, so let's go ahead and log in. Okay, now I am logged in. I have my auth token stored in a cookie. And currently, my name is Evan Andreas Gudmested. Let's go over here. Evan A. Gudmested. Change my password back to just regular old password. Click on save. User updated. Now if I go back in here, refresh my databases, I now have an edit collection with an edit ID, a timestamp, an operation, the user collection, and my auth object is a child object under here. So that operation is working. Literally, then all I have to do is copy this object and the function call, and paste it kind of down here. Modified count is 1. I'll paste timestamp. This is not the self-edit update user. This is the admin update user. Collection is the user. The target who we're changing is the user's ID. And the auth is rec.auth. Now, in the future, we'll actually lock this down, so you have to be an admin. We don't have that right now. And then we save and edit. So, literally copy and paste that, change what's different. And if I go back to my admin route and I change my name back to just Evan Gudmestead, save that, user updated, back to my database, refresh. I now have a self-edit update user and an admin update user. And you could put whatever data in that object, you know, that you want to track in your audit trail. But that's how that would work. Now, this is reusable such. Okay, let's close book. Let's close user, and let's go to get a book by ID. Here's our update book. If I look at my update book, here's our modified count for our book. Let's paste that. The operation is update book. The collection is book. The target is not the user ID, but the target is the book ID, which comes in the sense of we've got ID. This is the book ID, and then the auth is rec.auth. So here we make an edit, and we save that edit. So if I kind of start closing this stuff down because I'm not working on them, if I go to list all my books, here's Brave New World, there's its ID. If I go to update a book by the ID, and let's just update the price to 130 bucks. I gotta bring in save edit from my database. Try that again. It says book not updated. And so let me troubleshoot that. Let me see if it happened to be updated. If I list all books, it did. It updated the price, but it gave me back a bad message. So the reason for that must be my update result. So let me debug book, and let me see if my modified count is coming back. If I go to update my book, $131. Okay. Book updated. List all books. $131. Point is, now I can go back to my collection, refresh. I've got update book, collection book, target is the book ID, and who's logged in with permissions to update that book. So there's a simple object, save the object, and that creates an audit trail. And at this point, you guys are ready to do all the things in this lab. So I'm going to release you guys to continue to work on Lab 0401. And